today presenting, we have Matt Brown, who is the Executive Program Director of NetApp on NetApp. And with him, we also have Kamal Vyas, who is the Chief Cloud Architect for NetApp IT. So together, they're going to present on what NPS is, NetApp Private Storage, and how it benefits NetApp internally, how we've been using it internally, and we hope that this presentation actually helps our partners identify opportunities with this solution. So with that, I'm not going to extend myself. I'm going to ask Matt and Kamal to introduce themselves, and please go ahead and present to us. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to speak with you today. Just very briefly, a little background on me. I've been with NetApp for 20 years. I've been in IT for, it's getting close to 35 years now. So what I'll be sharing today is our experience in the cloud and how NetApp Storage really has created a very unique capability for our environment. Let me let Kamal introduce himself, and then I'll come back and I'll begin our presentation. Kamal?
Cool. Thanks, Matt. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking time out to join today's webinar. I am Kamal Vyas, Enterprise Cloud Architect for NetApp IT. I've been with NetApp for 13 years now, and last 5 years I've been leading our cloud and DevOps strategy here at NetApp IT. As Matt said, we are part of NetApp IT, so we are not part of any of the product sales or marketing team. So we don't get, of course, any commission on any of these products, but also our perspective is of an IT practitioner, like what works for us in our environment, and that's the type of stories we share. And today I will be covering why and how we use NPS in our cloud architecture. So looking forward to a good discussion there.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Kamal. One of the things before we start off, I want to give you a little bit broader background. NetApp IT, like most of our IT shops, most of our peer organizations, I believe are going through a lot of changes. With this background of digital transformation, the demands of the business are greater now than ever. The expectations from our customers are greater now than ever. People want solutions. They want broader options in the marketplace. They want capabilities that their own data center could never provide before. And those pose a lot of unique challenges to most IT shops. We have a lot of concerns. At the end of the day, it is IT, our CIO, that's responsible for the integrity of our data. And it's the data that's primarily mostly in demand. Capabilities depend on data. And really being able to create an architecture that allows an IT shop to leverage new resources, new capabilities is paramount to our existence and to our company's ability to thrive in the marketplace. So before we start talking about a product or an architecture, so NetApp Private Storage is an architecture. It's not a SKU. It is a collective set of resources that are built near a cloud. So before I go and really get into that piece, let's start off about what our problem to solve is. And it always is about the why. Why do I need to do change things? Why do I need to develop a new solution set? So we're going to be focused specifically on NetApp, but I'm sure that most of you who are working in IT, or even our salespeople are selling into IT, and realize that understanding the whys and our motivation is very important. So in NetApp specifically, so let's talk about what NetApp was 5 years ago. We were a hardware company, and our challenge was that you deliver an engineered hardware solution. It takes time. In our case, it was taking between 2 and 2.5 years. And in today's world, going to market every 2.5 years with a new solution probably isn't going to work. And come on, it wasn't working. The other piece is that, like all of us, we want new capabilities, and the cloud offers a tremendous opportunity for new capabilities, but the challenge is how do you get there? And a more traditional path is you go all into the cloud, but I'm a big believer that that's very limiting. You need the best of cloud, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Also, in our more traditional view, we were very limited on our ability to enable innovation. You only have a finite set of resources in the data center. Unfortunately, a lot of innovation is not officially approved. I mean, that's why it's innovation. People trying to figure out what to do next. And so innovation was hampered by our own on-prem offerings. And while we're looking out in the world and looking at cloud, and like I referred to before, going all in one cloud has a lot of, well, initially had a lot of concerns. I think a lot of them kind of been solved, especially in the security sides. But being able to go and leverage the cloud in a way that we have full or have access to our data and have abilities to enable our data with new capabilities was a primary concern for us. And we really, why we're all comfortable managing that on-prem. Moving to the cloud does cause a lot of different angst. What if I have to access that data through integration? Why do I have to move that data to a different cloud? So all those things became considerations, and were collectively our challenge with really moving our IT shop forward and really enabling not only IT, but our business to access new resources and new capabilities to thrive in the marketplace. Any questions here? Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So with our challenges, we did realize that the cloud was probably the best place to look. It offers a tremendous set of capabilities that we could never have on-prem. And, as I mentioned before, one cloud solution really didn't fit our requirements. Today, I need extensibility in compute. I need access to analytics. I need to run some services as services through SaaS. And I think we're all looking at machine learning and AI. And if you talk about that as a collective set of resources, there isn't one cloud that really does all three the best. And let's make another point here. The clouds are trying to compete against each other, which means there's be continuing innovation out there. So we're interested in a more best of cloud solution. The ability to take advantage of any and all resources out there and to do it in a way that allows us to not just to scale today, but maybe scale into the future. There's no question that there will be continued offerings in the cloud, and we want to be able to leverage those new opportunities as they come in the future. One of the primary things that we're interested in, because costs are always a concern, and when you look at your on-prem environment, we're always underutilizing our resources because we have to build to peak. The cloud really offers our ability to scale up and scale down those resources and maintain a core private data center with day-to-day resources to really run lean and mean and run as efficiently as possible. And then last and certainly not least, the ability to control and access and manage your data, but also expose your data to new resources has to be paramount again in really looking at a future solution that really enables our IT shops in ways that were just never before possible. Next slide, please. So it really, this concept really didn't exist, I think, when we started looking at it, and let's kind of put some timetables there. We started looking at this, I think, around 2014. And really, the concept was, I want to have my data near the cloud. I want my data to be an extended part of my data center, put my own security on it, manage it, because we're really good at managing data and storage. I'm sure you can appreciate that. And really allow a framework that allows us to start looking at different cloud providers just as resource pools. At the end of the day, cloud isn't a technology for technology's sake. We are adopting it to expand our ability to create capabilities, business value. And when we're looking at what people call a hybrid approach, a multi-cloud strategy that involves not only our data center, our private cloud, but does involve the SaaS world and also involves the multi-hyperscaler world. It is not only, actually, it's not just about scale up and scale down. It's about expanding resources, expanding opportunities and capabilities in a way that we can align to the strategy of our business. And as we were building that, and again, our hybrid cloud journey, we started our hybrid cloud again in 2014 when there was really just Amazon out there and SoftLayer, which was IBM's solution out there, to today where there's a whole variety of different cloud platforms. One of the first things we did was actually consider how it's going to be part of our operating environment. And why that's a side note, it is something you need to think about is how you incorporate all these services into your help desk. And we will talk about that in a later webinar of how that works. But I felt it was important to bring this up now as we're talking about building something near the cloud, that it just becomes an extension of your support model, and you do have to figure that out as a day-to-day operating principle. But at the end of the day, what we feel, and let me talk a little bit about how this solution works, NetApp Private Storage is really leveraging a solution from a vendor called Equinix. Very briefly, and Kamal's going to get to this at a much more technical level, Equinix data centers are very close to cloud proximity, the cloud provider's proximity, which means they have very low latency between the centers. And the concept then is we will put or expand our data set from our private cloud through our products. One of the features that we have is SnapMirror, keeping the data in sync, and allowing that data to be exposed to not one, but many cloud providers through the power of the Equinix operating model. Equinix offers cross connects to these hyperscalers and really enables this as a solution. We end up getting a lot of benefits from that by having our data exposed to not one, but all three providers, and doing that in a way, as like I had mentioned before, that is scaling and keeping our business to a competitive advantage. Next slide, please. So let's give you one example of how this enablement has really changed the way we're doing business. I'm going to use one example from a service that we have called ActiveIQ. ActiveIQ is a very important service for our customers. We see it as a systems of differentiation for our customer support organization. Its goal is to empower our customers with the visibility of how their data sets being used, its health, make recommendations about patching and upgrades, and really empower our customers to really take control of their storage estate and allow them to make decisions with this new capability like they've never had before. We even compare it to like industries so they can see how their use compares to the efficiencies of other of their peers. Very important application for us. The challenge is it took a long time to enable capabilities. If you look at that middle column, we're talking months, if not up to a year. Very high cost. And let me talk to my IT brethren out there. This is an environment that was ever growing. So we were spending actually more time for building to peak than we were actually developing. And as you already know, you feel it every day, we became the bottleneck. Infrastructure became the bottleneck. We were all the developers were just waiting on infrastructure to be available to continue to be able to work. Again, in our engineered solution, in go-to-market, over 2 years. In terms of the ability to deploy analytics, you can see there, 6 months. Not conducive to running a modern-day company. Now, with NPS and with some processes, we're a CI/CD shop, we were able to really revolutionize the way we've done development. I would argue that this was the starting point that really enabled NetApp itself to do its own transformation. This is kind of picking ourselves up by our bootstraps. Having our data being able to expose to the cloud allowed us access to scalable infrastructure resources, removing the need to constantly building to peak. It also enabled us to not have to install our own analytic tools, but start to look at analytics as a service. Kamal will show you some examples of actually how this architecture looks specifically. But let's talk about the net results. We shrunk our go-to-market time for engineered solutions to 6 months. Dramatic improvement. Now, I'm going to argue in an engineered solution that's about as fast as a consumer can consume that type of a product. But it did something else, and this is where it's core to our own digital transformation story. We were able to get our operating system, ONTAP, out of the box, which really allowed NetApp to become a software company and run that very powerful ONTAP solution set anywhere there's basically a VM. And what this meant was we were now able to run our software in not one cloud provider, but all of them, and enable the power of Snap, which is the move, manage, and protect part of our product, to replicate data very fast, to keep the data in sync, to shrink compress the data, dedupe the data, very powerful. And with this ability now to access the cloud to extend resources, both in the compute side, the memory side, and then the analytics side, we were able now to create a whole new line of products. Also, in the concept of creating our engineered solution, we went from being number 4 primary storage provider to become number 1. And I truly believe it was the ability to leverage the best of cloud in a way that maximizes resource effectiveness and really allows us a cost-effective model to scale. If you look to the example on the right, categorically, we have gone from months to a week, and I'm going to argue the week is an artificial thing in terms of how to market and bundle new capabilities to actually market those and go to market. I would argue that with this capability, our only limits today are our ability to be creative and then to code it effectively. And while transactionally the costs have actually gone up, the total cost of ownership, if you talk about removing that waste of underutilization and that time to wait why resources are available, our total cost of ownership has actually gone down. And what we end up getting is kind of the best of all worlds. Our data center now is expanded into the traditional data centers, from a traditional data center into the hyperscalers, leveraging SaaS, leveraging the power of the DevOps capability in Amazon, the enterprise level access and services and capabilities that Microsoft offers, to the masters of analytics like Google. In this example, I think it really highlights the power of what NPS offers by having your cloud, your data near enough to the cloud to really leverage it as the data as an asset. Next slide. And before I hand it off to Kamal, I hope you just get a sense from a business perspective and how and why we need it, that this is a very critical part of our hybrid cloud operations. And now I'll turn it over to Kamal to talk about the architecture behind it. And Kamal is really the mastermind behind creating this for us as our architect. And I hope you enjoy his portion. Kamal?
Cool. Great. Thank you, Matt. I'm not muted, right? Can you guys hear me? Or at least someone? Okay, perfect. All right, so yeah, let's look at behind the scenes, right? What NPS lower level architecture is and what benefits we get. So as Matt touched upon, NPS is a key foundational block of our cloud architecture. We have been using it for almost 4 years now, and being a huge fan at NetApp IT, 80% plus of our current cloud workloads leverage NPS solution today. And next few slides will go over how NPS fits in our cloud architecture and what benefits it provides, right? So all right, with that, let's get started, right? I wanted to do a quick compare and contrast of the storage offerings NetApp has in cloud. customer has a lot of choices today in terms of what storage offering they want to get from NetApp, right? So on the left, what I'm showing is NetApp Private Storage, NPS. This is a fully customer-managed solution, and it's like bringing your own storage to the cloud, right, or near to the cloud. In this, you would essentially buy a NetApp gear and install it in a colo, like Equinix has pointed out, and connect it with low latency connections. Customer would have full control of the data, right? And also on the side, you have full responsibility of the lifecycle management of the solution. There are no restrictions in terms of what regions and what cloud providers you can build this with. Anywhere you have a colo and a low latency connection, this can be turned up in the region. Now, this is what we're going to focus on today, but just to say what are the other options, right? So you also have NetApp Cloud Volumes, which is offered as a service in major cloud providers today, right? This offering, NetApp has installed and integrated NetApp gear in or close to major cloud providers' environments. And this offering can be consumed and built directly through the cloud provider. So you really don't have to buy any colo space or equipment without any contract or relationship with NetApp, right? Just directly built through the cloud provider. It is available in all major regions, but not as wide as NPS would be. And NetApp team is working hard to bring up new regions every quarter. So those are published on our website. Key difference for Cloud Volumes compared to NPS is in Equinix, the data is in customer's control, but on Cloud Volumes, data would be in NetApp's control, right? NetApp would have control of the data. But on the flip side, if you use Cloud Volumes, you really don't have to worry about lifecycle management of the solution, and it's a full pay-as-you-go OpEx model, and patching and upgrades are all handled behind the scenes by NetApp. So based on what your customers want, either control of the data or pay-as-you-go model, I think they have choices and options in the cloud. The third one, which we have pointed over there, is NetApp Cloud Volumes ONTAP, right? So that's the one which Matt was pointing to. Now we have a software-only offering, which can run on any cloud provider which offers VM. And in the back end, it uses the infrastructure of the cloud provider. In case of NetApp Private Storage and Cloud Volumes, it runs on NetApp actual hardware. But for NetApp Cloud Volumes, the key difference is it runs on the cloud provider's infrastructure. But at the same time, it provides you all the ONTAP capabilities and features like SnapMirror, dedupe, and other things what Matt already touched upon. This offering can also be enabled in any region, so there is a wide choice of regions available. And you have choice in terms of, do you want to go bring your own license, buy through NetApp and bring it to the cloud provider, or just rent it from marketplace on any of these cloud providers. And in NetApp IT, we leverage all three options, but for today's webinar, we'll be focusing on the Equinix. And I just want to make sure you understand what are the choices available in terms of cloud storage options from NetApp before we jump into that one. All right, if there are no questions, next slide. So as we said, we are huge fans of NPS, and 80% of our workloads today leverage NPS as a solution. We have a multi-hybrid cloud environment, which we maintain, and we've been running it for 4 years. We leverage all major cloud providers, Amazon, Microsoft Azure, and Google. But for all three of them, the storage portion is always on NetApp Private Storage. We really don't use any of the storage from the cloud providers. So what does that buy us, right? So essentially, what we do is we choose our location very strategically where we want to build NPS, ideally in a region where you have multiple cloud providers available, and you have a colo which provides you a very low latency connection to all these cloud providers, right? So that way, the latency between the compute and the storage is sub-millisecond. And for most cases, we target it to be under 2 milliseconds for our deployments. So what does this type of environment buy, right? There's some upfront work we have to do in terms of setting up the colo and connectivity, but at the end of the day, we have full control of our data at all times, right? And as Matt touched upon, data is key. Essentially, data is everything your company is, right? Computes and VMs are all replaceable, but if you have the data, you can take it anywhere and build your entire IT infrastructure or company right from the scratch. Our compliancy and privacy are handled just like how we handle it in our data centers, right? So for example, if companies have strict compliancy needs like GDPR in Germany or in Europe, and you want to make sure your data resides in certain geographical boundary, those kind of use cases can be deployed using NetApp Private Storage. You have full control of how you want to handle the data at rest and in transit, so you can encrypt when the minimum amount of time the data goes to the cloud provider, or all the time when the data sits in this particular data set. Our audit processes, like in terms of our auditors, like how they check and process our audits for on-prem workloads, the same processes now apply to cloud workloads as well, right? It doesn't have to change, so that itself is a big relief for our auditors, and they really don't have to worry about dissecting how storage or data is handled in the cloud provider's environment. So if you have a customer like anybody who's in the tight regulatory compliance type of organization, industry, banking, healthcare, government, this itself is a huge selling point for them, right? To have full control of their data at all time. This also helps us be cloud agnostic. So as no data resides in the cloud provider, we can easily move between the clouds, right? So let's say if you have an application running in Amazon, now for some reason, for price or features or whatever the reason you want to move it on Azure, the migration is very easy, right? Because the data never moves. Data has gravity. Moving data is always hard. When you take data out of the cloud provider's environment, they would charge you a lot of money and time. So in this case, we would just have to build the app on Cloud B, connect to the same data set, and make a DNS change, and we can move application from Cloud 1 to Cloud 2. So no lock-ins, right? In case of we want better pricing or better features, this type of architectures in NetApp IT helps us do those kind of use cases and use truly what Matt was referring to, best of cloud, right? As we said, when we started, we were with Amazon, and as Google and Microsoft came up, there are a lot of features like Google Analytics and AI and ML. Those workloads to move from A cloud to B cloud is very easy with this kind of architecture, and we have essentially no lock-in if we use any of these features. Also, we get all the enterprise class efficiencies what ONTAP provides, right? So, for example, by turning features like thin provisioning and dedupe in our internal setup, like in NPS, we almost need 60% less storage. Like if we were to buy this storage, or if this storage was living in the cloud provider's environment, we would be needing more than double the capacity what we have provisioned in NPS. So all the innovation we have done on ONTAP in the last 20 years, now it's available for me to use for my cloud workloads too, right? Imagine that 60% less, like my bill would be more than double. Of course, cloud is more expensive than ONTAP, but it will be more than double if I were to use the full capacity of that storage from cloud providers. Cool, next slide, please. And you can also extend this architecture, right, by connecting NPS to the on-prem data center. So NetApp has the best data mover. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with SnapMirror. Now, if you combine that SnapMirror with NPS, customers can create a true hybrid multi-cloud data fabric, right? So for example, one of the key strategic initiatives we have in NetApp IT is to leverage public cloud for all DR workloads, right? So with SnapMirror, we can synchronize the data between our private cloud and the public cloud. And we can have the primary application running on-prem and the DR instance of that running on cloud. So with this, we really don't need to invest any more money in buying DR hardware. So if you look at DR hardware, right, it's essentially the most least used hardware in your data center. For example, it just gets used once in 3 years or 3 months, like when you're doing a DR test, or once in 5-10 years when you actually want to fail over an application. But with our NPS strategy, we can keep the data replicated to the cloud and only bring up the compute in the cloud provider for the hours or days we really need it and just pay rent, right? So we don't have to run 3-year depreciation cycle on that dead hardware running in our data centers. And this has helped us tremendously, right, to repurpose rows and rows of DR hardware we had in our data centers. Now we have moved all of that, we are all moving that workload to the cloud, and we are extending the life of our data centers by many years by that type of architecture. By the way, this doesn't just apply to DR, right? Any of your temporary workloads, for example, dev, test, sandbox, you really don't have to maintain that extra capacity or that variable capacity in your private cloud. With Data Fabric and SnapMirror NPS, you could move all of those temporary workloads to public cloud and rent them versus buying them and using it momentarily or months and years or whatnot, right, for those kind of use cases. This architecture also helps with cloud migration. Moving an application from on-prem to cloud, we really don't have to change the application architecture, right? So if you're using snapshots and NFS or certain hierarchy of volumes, now the app can move as is to the cloud without trying to fit that app into a blob storage or EBS or S3, right? So essentially, it fuels your cloud migrations, right? So migration time becomes really less. Also, downtime, because the SnapMirror will keep the data replicated during cutover, is pretty less, and you are really up, and you can really enhance the speed at which cloud migration go with this kind of architecture. All the tools, what we use, and all the personnel we have for on-prem storage management, like storage architects, they are the same guys now managing the storage in the public cloud, right? We really don't have to invest in buying new tools or getting new resources to now manage our cloud workloads. So if you combine all of these, right, like how much by using enterprise class features we save, and the DR repurposing of the data centers and tools and personal reuse, this architecture has helped us tremendously reduce the total cost of ownership when it comes to our cloud storage. And truly, cloud has become an extension of our data center strategy, and to the fact where we are now eliminating a lot of our data center regions and trying to move a bunch of workload over to the cloud and use it to provide not only just resource perspective, but also provide economic advantages to us in terms of cost efficiency and things like those. Next slide, please. This architecture also supports containerized workload, right? For example, if you have Kubernetes clusters running in any of your cloud providers, NetApp has also an open source Kubernetes plugin called Trident. So you can deploy those on your Kubernetes clusters and use that to connect back to NPS, and also leverage ONTAP as a backend storage for even containerized applications. So all the benefits and features we talked about now also can be extended to containerized workloads as well. So not just VMs or infrastructure as service. NPS provides a great value for containerized customers as well. So I'll take a pause over there. I don't know, MJ, any questions on the chat or whatnot, but that kind of summarizes what are the reasons or what are the benefits we get from perspective of using NPS as architecture. And hopefully it gives you some insight into not just from the perspective of what NPS is, but what are the use cases and options customer have, which this kind of architecture can help them deliver.
Kamal, this is Mary Jo. There are no questions at this time. Anyone in the group have a question? You can put it into the chat window or just unmute yourself and speak up.
Kamal, can I ask you a quick question? It's Elias.
Yes. Yeah, we love questions.
On the previous slide, there was in the circle there was Cloud Insights mentioned, the actual service. Can you maybe explain a little bit how you use that? Or
yeah, definitely. Yeah. So and that's the point I was saying is we really don't have to invest in any of the new tools, right? So Cloud Insight is our SaaS offering, I'm sure a lot of customers, if they have heard, we used to have OCI, on-command insight as the options, which on-prem offering, which customers can buy and install in their data centers, and it has a lot of value points it would give you in managing your storage solution. Now, the new offering is Cloud Insight, which you can buy that as a SaaS offering from NetApp and point and manage not only just your private cloud workloads, but also your public cloud workloads directly through this portal in SaaS. And it gives you all real-time information into your IOPS needs, your usage of your hardware, what kind of efficiencies you're gaining, what kind of features you can turn on to get the best out of your NetApp investments and things like those. So if you haven't looked in that, I think we can definitely do a webinar just on that and the benefits it provides. But that's our cloud-based SaaS offering for managing all of our NetApp technology, plus more, right? It just not only works on NetApp technology, any storage gear or any compute gear also can be managed using Cloud Insights.
It's hardware agnostic, I'm guessing.
Like I said, do you use each of the public clouds or have a preferred platform? So, yeah, I think good question. And when we started this journey 4 years back, our preferred cloud provider, or the only cloud provider which was close to providing services, was Amazon. And that still remains most heavily used cloud in NetApp IT's environment. But then over time, there are services beyond infrastructure. So there's no reason for choosing A, B, or C cloud for if you're just using VMs and load balancers and whatnot, right? Their pricing and their regions and geographies are pretty much same for our use cases unless you are in a special geography. But if you want to use any advanced features like AI, ML, or any of the other advanced features for Microsoft, like their DevOps pipelines and whatnot, those are the special type of use cases we have ventured into other cloud providers. So Amazon still remains the most heavily used, not because it just had a head start, but all of them three in terms of IaaS have the same capabilities. And if you go beyond that, then they have all their own niche and specializations we try to use for. Cool. Any other questions?
Yeah, just a quick one. Are you looking at any other cloud providers at the moment?
No. I think that's pretty much it for now. We don't have any further radar in the next 1 year, or at least two. I would say things change fast in this environment, but as far as I can see, no.
Thank you.
All right, MJ, we can go a couple of slides ahead. So I think we covered this one. We covered the next one. Yeah, I think we covered this one too. Let's go next. So all right, so now we looked at the benefits, right? So how do you architect an NPS solution, right? So the architecture can be simple. Like in some of our regions, we essentially just have NPS connected through a direct link to the cloud provider. But in some cases, it could be a real enterprise use case, right? Let's say in regions where you want to completely replace your data center, you could have a complete mini data center type design over there, right? So especially as your cloud footprint grows, you can build that to be a true enterprise grade environment. So NPS is foundational block for our cloud adoption, as we said. And for advanced architectures in some regions, we strategically choose the location of the colo, like one where we want to be from a geography perspective, which provides us the best latency from our user population and where they are. And also it has some millisecond latency to multiple cloud providers. In those kind of deployments, we just not put storage and direct connections in the colo, but it's a complete mini data center design architecture, right? It has routers connecting back to NetApp data center for Snap data and replication, so data can be replicated workloads can be moved between clouds. It has even firewalls to provide control and visibility as what traffic can go between clouds and to our data centers. And if you are familiar with the concept in a cloud, it's our full-fledged transit VPC, right? With the only difference is that it not only supports one cloud. Like if you were to build a transit VPC in an Amazon environment, it would be good to transit between multiple VPCs in that environment. But this one is a true multi-cloud transit VPC, right? And really, this is our control point and visibility point for anything which goes in between interclouds or cloud to our data centers. We can have full control and visibility applied through the firewalls over there. And this foundation can scale to support a lot of applications. We already have hundreds of production apps leveraging this architecture today, and it can go even beyond. We just as fast as we can migrate. So with that said, I think next slide, MJ. Yeah, here's a closer look, right? So under the hoods for what I meant to say. So, and this could be used for multiple use cases, like if you have multiple customers or if you have multi-tenancy needs for, let's say, your business unit 1 and business unit 2, and you have multiple clouds. What we are showing here is top portion, for example, let's say is built in Amazon, right? You have DMZ workloads on the right side, which are public facing, and then you have internal workloads on the left side. You could have your own reasons to have VPC, like, as I said, business unit or different customers. And on the below, we have Azure, which have similar architectures, which have the same business units running on the backside too, right? So now the end corp customers can use the same NetApp Private Storage. And if you know NetApp features, we also support software-defined logical partitioning, right, SVM. So what we do in our environment is we create an SVM on top of that common NPS for each of those customers. So irrespective of all the clouds they are in, like Amazon, Azure, or Google, from all of those places, they have free access to connect to that SVM, which is created in that common data set or the common NPS we have for all the cloud providers. And now we do that for all multiple customers we have. So imagine I'm just showing 2, but we have lots and lots of these VPCs on different clouds for different partitioning and logical separation reasons. But now if they want to go between those VPCs, let's say end corp customer wants to talk to end public customer or between those zones, then they go through the firewall right in between. So we can have full control and visibility into who can talk to what and what can be allowed and permitted. So it's the same exact hardware, just not only supporting multiple clouds, but also carved into software-defined partitions for VPC and low-level separation needs, right, segmentation needs. So idea over here is a true multi-tenant environment, and at the same time, full security enabled with software-defined features like VLAN extensions and storage virtual machines what NetApp provides. All right, I think that's pretty much how deep we want to go in the architecture. Any questions about what this is trying to showcase over here?
You have a question in the chat, Kamal.
All right, with NPS, can compute remain on hardware run in the data center? Are there egress costs to consider when migrating to the cloud? I think good question, right? So if you have NPS, can compute remain on hardware running in the data center? You could, but it's essentially just like buying NetApp storage in your data center, right? So when we call it NPS, essentially when you use it near to the cloud with compute from the cloud provider's environment. But if you want to use the same technology on-prem, that's just regular NetApp storage, which you can definitely run in your private data centers too. On the second part of the question, there are definitely egress costs you have to consider because NetApp Private Storage connects as an external entity out of the cloud provider's environment. You would have charges for data which exits the cloud and goes towards NetApp Private Storage, right? So essentially, if you have reads, let's say you have an application which is reading the data from NetApp Private Storage, there's no charge for that. But now if you're writing some back to the NetApp Private Storage, for those, you would have to pay charges. And if you have connections like Direct Connect and whatnot, it's a fraction of your Amazon bill, right? So for us, we do those kind of calculations on a monthly basis, and we are less than 1% of our total Amazon bill is for data charges. So, but if you have a use case where you have really, really heavy writes out of your environment, yeah, you definitely want to consider what would be your egress charges. And if you're using things like Direct Connect, they probably give you our dedicated interconnect or express route, depending on what cloud you use. They give you really the best pricing for egress charges. Yeah, so that definitely is a cost to consider in this case. And but in the grand scheme of mix, like how much you save from the efficiencies you get plus repurposing your DR and whatnot, I think for IT case that's negligible cost. And for our data numbers, it's something which not a big issue. But yeah, definitely something should be accounted for heavy writes environments. All right, any other question?
I think that's it.
It just popped up. He just popped up asking some more stuff. When storage workloads are migrated to the cloud. Yep, sorry.
Yeah, when storage workloads are migrated to cloud volumes / cloud volumes on tab, what happens to the compute resources? Do they need to be migrated to cloud too? Yeah. So essentially, what you would do is with NPS or cloud volumes on tap, you could get the data replicated to the cloud. You would, depending on how you use compute, the migration can be as simple, right? If you are truly a software-defined organization where all your configurations and binaries and whatnot are code, you could just bring the containers up on the right side in Kubernetes or VM up on the right side and load those parameters using a software-defined tool like Ansible. Or if you have really hard dependency on the OS, there are multiple tools out there to migrate your VM from a cloud VMware to EC2, for example, right? So that is something has to be figured out based on what kind of use case you are running. For our purposes, we have been very religious or we have very pressing about this to say everything we define for a VM or a compute has to be a software-defined entity. We really don't want to depend on OS level or hypervisor level dependencies and features, so it's really hard to do cloud migration. So for us, it's just as purpose of building the new vanilla flavor of container or VM on the right side and putting all the colors using Ansible or let's say Helm in case of Kubernetes, and connecting it to the storage, which is already replicated using NetApp technology for migrations. All right, no problem. All right, so let's go to the next slide. I think we have 9 minutes left. So just key takeaways. Definitely, as we said, the whole idea is this NPS gives you best of both worlds. It lets you use cloud providers, cloud compute elasticity, like you can scale up and down, use any cloud providers on demand, the features you want, but at the same time maintain full control of your data, right? So idea is you can have security, data privacy, compliancy, audits, all of those, how you have been doing in your on-prem data center now can apply to cloud workload too. So those are big selling points for NPS, right? And especially if you are in a regulated company, it resonates really well with them. NetApp, as we said, has the best data mover capability in the industry, SnapMirror, for semi-sync or multi-sync, whatever you want to use your technology to manage, move, and protect your data across different clouds. So definitely NPS, along with that, is truly your data fabric connecting your multi hybrid cloud environments, and use cases you can deliver on top of that when it comes to cloud burst, like you just use extra capacity in the cloud, or cloud migrations, or DR. The possibilities are endless, right? So that definitely is a key takeaway. And security, we talked about software-defined features like SVM and encryption at rest and encryption in transit. All of those are really enterprise grade, and most workloads which are really not willing to move to the cloud for those kind of reasons now can take advantage of both, right? Bring your storage to the cloud, have all these features turned on, at the same time have a true OpEx model from the compute where you can scale up and scale down as needed, and be more cost and cost efficient in your environment. So I have the link put over here. We'll definitely share the slides out for where the product info is. But yeah, definitely a lot of value this kind of foundation bring to our cloud adoption journey, and we are really heavily investing more and more into this environment.
Okay, so I'm going to close the call. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending. Thank you very much, Mary Jo, Matt, and Kamal for presenting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
great day.
Bye-bye.